morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Sherard Show. I am your host, Sherard. Hope you're doing well on this Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have a very special guest as well as a topic we're going to be speaking about today. We have the legendary Reggie Wright Jr. on the show. This man is a gentleman and a scholar. He's also trending everywhere on social media. You see him on the Art of Dialogue, Vlad TV, as well as so many other platforms. But he has a very interesting story to talk about, and we're going to get into it this morning. But before we begin, the Sherard Show is brought to you by Pure Essence Television, where you can see some of the greatest interviews of your life, from Melissa Manchester to Lou Rawls Jr. to Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, as well as Smokey Robinson, just to name a few, as well as this interview with Mr. Reggie Wright Jr. And then it's also brought to you by iHeartRadio, ladies and gentlemen. If you missed this broadcast on television, you can also listen to it on iHeartRadio and Smile and Drive. Well, this special episode is entitled Making Sense of the Nonsense, because this gentleman has been around so much nonsense in his years, but he's here to make sense out of things. Many years ago, it was the murder of Tupac Shakur, as well as the origin of Death Row Records, and then a demise of Death Row Records, and then now it's back again with Snoop Dogg purchasing it. And this man was here from the beginning, Mr. Reggie Wright Jr. How are you, sir?
Oh, respect for having me.
It's always an honor having you, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar. We really appreciate what you have to say. Now, Reggie, in your life and career, talk to us a little bit about your beginning. Were you born and raised, first of all, in California?
Born and raised in California, actually a city called Bellflower, California. That's where the big Kaiser was then. And that's where all the kids from Watts, that's where they had to drive to go and have their babies, the mamas and stuff. And so anybody that's born in the 60s or the 70s and in LA County area, pretty much was born at the Kaisers in Bellflower.
Now, Bellflower is in Southern California. What major city is it near, so people can locate it on the map?
Yeah, it's near Paramount, Compton, Southgate. It's right there in the heart of everything. A little bit close to Cerritos. And so cities like that, really, it's about 10 minutes away from Compton. Which my parents was in either the housing projects of Watts, Imperial Courts projects, or Compton at the time. And they went back and forth to those two communities.
Now, in the 80s, there was the origination of crack that it started in California, in Los Angeles, and then it just spread from there. Were you part of that epidemic, fighting that back in the early 80s?
Towards the end, it took off. It was real bad in the mid 80s. I was working in the jail at that time. I started working in the jail in 1985 for the City of Compton Police Department. And so that was like 85. But the crack epidemic started really a little bit before that, from like 80 to 81, when it became into the rock form. I mean, they always had the powder drugs. It's just like that drug now that's out there now, that's fentanyl. It don't become a problem until the white folks are smoking on it. Then it becomes a problem. And so that's why we hear a lot of fentanyl now, and which is another form of heroin, which was real big back in my parents' days, the 70s. They were all shooting up on needles or taking Red Devils. The guys in the 79 before the crack hit, they almost was on that angel dust, we called it, or PCP or Sherm. That's what a lot of those guys was on.
And that's some very powerful stuff you're speaking about, Sherm and angel dust. I mean, I remember hearing those names back when I was a kid. But now, Reggie, what was it like being a police officer? You started in 1985, correct?
1985, January 1985.
And what was it like being an African-American officer in LAPD when it was known for being the most corrupt police force in the nation back then?
Well, to be honest, I work for Compton PD, which is about 8 to 10 miles away from the closest part of LA. And so everybody think LA Compton. It's actually LA County that we all are in, but I work for Compton. But fortunately, my city was one of those cities that were predominantly a black city. It was about 85 black, 13 or 14% Mexican or Latin, whichever you refer to be called. And then the other 1 or 2% was other, a few of the white folks that hadn't left yet. And that's about it. Yeah. And, a little bit of Samoans, Hawaiian. And so that's how our demographic broke down. But our police department, though, was still like 50-50, black and white. Well, let's go 50 white, 45 black, and about the other 5 or 4% others, meaning Mexicans or Filipinos or something like that. And so the good part about that is you still have some management that were black. And so you didn't have that problem too much with the racism going on. You had the blue line, the blue shield, but you didn't have the racism among, people that were just outright racist that could show it, because there's a good chance, just like me. My grandparents both still lived in the city of Compton. Matter of fact, in '85, my parents were still living in Compton. And so they couldn't be just treating everybody in that community like that, meaning being a white officer and a black officer, because you never know who you was running into, people that had relationships with people. And so we didn't have that problem too much in our city. Well, I can understand where LA had, because it was about 9,000 of them then. And they had a chief, Earl Gates at the time, that was all but promoting it. And they were about 90% white and 8% black, and maybe a little even lower on the black side. And then the rest were Mexicans or Asians or something like that.
Now, one thing that's interesting, Reggie, is that a lot of people don't know, but Compton used to be very, very nice back in the 60s and 70s. It was a very nice, desirable place, and it was all white. Actually, it was like a Polish community. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, people don't know George Bush, the first president. I'm not the first Bush president, I meant, Bush. He used to live in the Santa Fe Gardens while he was attending Compton Community College for a summer back in the 50s or the 60s. And so, yeah, whites had ran Compton pretty much until about the early 70s. And then that's when we call it the white escape or whatever. That's when they started selling the house.
So, Reggie, what led to the exodus of that? Was it the murder of Dr. Martin Luther King? What was the reason that led to the white flight, as they say?
Yeah, the white flight. That's the word I was looking for. Just people were getting jobs, and the houses was only like $28,000 to $30,000. I remember my parents purchased their house in 1971 or two. I think they only paid $28,000 for that house. And so people were getting jobs and were being able to qualify for the loans down to get the homes. And the white people started moving to Bellflower and to Cerritos and places like that. And I just think because the blacks were getting the post office jobs, driving the bus. Some were getting into law enforcement and jobs that were paying you a decent living. And that's all they wanted. That's all our parents wanted.
So now, Reggie, from 85, let's jump to 1992 with the the beating of Rodney King. You are still on the force back then, correct?
When?
In 1992.
Yes. I didn't retire from the force until 1996. So yeah.
So how was it for you with the seeing the videotape of seeing Rodney King getting beaten and being an African-American man on the force, and then also seeing the riots and all the things that it led to. What was it like for you back then?
To be honest, what happened to Rodney King? Not to that extent. I have never seen any officers use the baton that good, but that was kind of a norm that happened at the end of a police pursuit back pre-Rodney King. And so then once that happened and got exposed, because what? Now we got the camcorders that people are having that's more accessible to. See, a lot of the youth and the millennials don't know. We didn't have cell phones in our hands and walking cameras and stuff like that as we do today. It was very, very unique situation to have a camcorder around. And they started documenting and they got caught on camera, and that's what blew. But Rodney King just was lucky enough or fortunate enough to have his incident taped, because there's a lot of Rodney Kings out there. But thank God for that, because that scared them, especially when they seen the DAs going after them and putting them on trial. And that made cops, I'm not saying that they stopped, but trust me, it made people think. And so then the riots happened after the trials and stuff like that. Yeah. And a lot of people have to get mad at me, but I feel bad for Reginald Denny.
That's the truck driver that got pulled out of, you watch your monitor, ladies and gentlemen, that's the truck driver, the white truck driver that got pulled out of the semi by black people and got, is it stoned to death?
He didn't die. He just got kicked. And remember they was calling the guy that was doing the kicking football or something like that. And he had a nickname because he was kicking him like he was a football and stuff. So it was like 4 of them that really got put on trial for that. But they put some work in on that man.
Now, Reggie, I'm going to interrupt you for a minute. Now, you said you felt more sorry for him. Was it more so than Rodney King? If so, why?
That's a good point. Because like I said, that was the norm. You run from the police, you get your butt whooped. That's just how the mindset was back pre-Rodney King. Like I said, after that, then, and you start saying like, oh, this ain't right. It takes stuff like that to get shown that stuff's not right. Man, I thank God for Oprah and Ellen and all of their shows, because we grew up thinking things were right. Cheating on your wife, doing this stuff. And then you start seeing this stuff and seeing how it affects your family and your wife. And you be like, oh, that stuff ain't cool.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't. And so unfortunately, we got to learn by seeing and getting stuff put in our head repetitively. And then we kind of be like, okay. And I think that's what had to happen to law enforcement, by them showing that tape over and over and over, to be like, okay, this stuff that y'all doing, number one, it ain't right. Number two, it's not going to be tolerated. And number three, you're about going to go to prison or jail. You get caught doing it.
Now, Reggie, back then, 90, 91, 92, in 1990, the movie Colors came out, and that really depicted gangs in LA, mainly the Bloods and the Crips, and that was starring Sean Penn as one of the cops. And it was very, very successful film. It did very well in the theaters as well as on VHS back then. Now, Reggie, was that a true depiction of what gangs were like in LA at the time?
Pretty much. It was a good movie. I enjoyed it. You had the scene where the cop in his community messing around with the young lady, and she catching flat for them, but then she ultimately gonna ride with her, with where she grew up at and the people she grew up in the sandbox. You had the rookie cop that just was gun-ho, wanted to jump out the car and beat up and chase everybody. And then the older cop would be like, wait a minute, hold on. Let's sit back. I still remember the saying he used to touch, and Sean Penn messed it up, where Robert told him, you want to go up the hill and fuck and chase and fuck one of the cows, or do you want to go around and have a plan, a circle, and get them all. I mean,
Yeah.
to show you the maturity. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't want to omit. It was Robert Duvall and Sean Penn. That's who it was.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it wasn't just Sean Penn. Okay, I'm sorry. And for those who are just tuning in, we are speaking to the gentleman and the scholar himself, Mr. Reggie Wright Jr. He used to be a cop on LAPD, but also he was also the CFC
Compton
of Compton. Let me stand corrected. Of Compton, California. And then also he was, and we'll speak about this a little later, he was also the CEO of Death Row Records. So we're going to talk more about that as well. Now, Reggie, when 92, for example, 90, 91, especially 91 and 92, the music industry on hip hop, it was booming. I mean, it was booming. There was the DJ Quick, there was the MC8, there was the Too Short, there was NWA. I'm sorry.
Ice-T, the Ghetto Boys.
Ice-T, and then it was a lot of songs depicting Killer Cop and all these things back then. Now, did that add to the tension of being a cop in Compton/LA?
Yeah. It pissed them off because people would drive up next to you playing it loud in their speakers and their boom, in their cars. And so they definitely gonna get pulled over or get a ticket or something. Get harassed, but other than that, and they knew it when they did it, so that's why they did it. They didn't care. But other than that, nobody was like fearful or anything like that. They just didn't want to hear it because they had never heard stuff like that before, and so they would, cops were just not trained to be like, okay, this is not your job to be offended so easily. And it took a while for us to learn that. It's take people going to jail and stuff like that. And I know a lot of people, mainly the blacks and the younger kids that's listening, you say, it's still going on. You had no idea how it was back in the 90s and the 80s. Yeah, we still got knuckleheads out there, but the percentage is very, very low in law enforcement with the corruption and the knuckleheads because of oversights. Internal affairs are better. The different justice departments, meaning the U.S. attorneys will come after you if that DA doesn't decide to come at you. You have people like Ben Crump and Al Sharpton and all of them out there that's going to get the media and say, okay, lawyer, you it's your case, but I can get the media to show up for you. If you get the family to agree to give me a fee or whatever from the settlement. And they're doing it for money, but sometimes you need that push. There's been a lot of cases that's been out there until Ben Crump came out there and pushed it to the front. That probably wouldn't have got the publicity that it did if it wasn't for people like him. Well, I salute him.
Now, Reggie, which cop would you say? Did you start off as Sean Penn on Colors and then you eventually became a Robert Duvall with your personality?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Because I was young. I was 19 when I started working in the jail, 19 years of age. I don't believe a police officer should even have the opportunity to become in law enforcement now until about the age of 26, 27.
And why do you say that, Reggie?
You have too much power. Writing you a ticket. Some of us don't even have the knowledge of writing a 50-year-old lady a ticket when you could have just advised her. It probably would work just as good than messing up this lady's whole week or month. Where now, I would be like, okay, ma'am, you need to slow down or you need to be more careful. And I bet you that would work just as well as writing that ticket, where it takes a minute to learn that. And it takes maturity and life lessons to understand. I did have a training officer. The one thing he told me is, you ever walk up to a car and the people will be like, I messed up. I'm sorry. Can you give me a break? Told me, you give them a break if you're riding in the car with me. And so you have people like that, but this is a black officer. Had another one that was I rode in the car with, and he goes, "It's 95." Well, he says, "I wish they drop a bomb on this city and blow up all these people." Now he was Mexican, or I don't even know what he was, but he wasn't black. And I'm not saying all because there's some good white cops too, right? I'm not putting that on. But I go, wait a minute, what you mean drop a bomb on this city? My grandparents live in this community, this city. Yeah, we got about 4,000 or 5,000 buttholes out of 100,000 people in the city. But there's only 4,000 or 5,000. So you're going to kill up a 95,000 people because you don't like or you have problems with 4,000 or 5,000 people? Nigga, get me out of this car. Remember, I told him take me to the station. Now I had a little bit more juice then because I had been around in the jail for a little while, and I had a father that was in administration there, so I could see and do things a little different than most cops can do. But I'm like, this is what this guy is teaching these people, and this is the mindset they're coming out with. We can't have that. I mean, everybody in this community is not bad, and so, but in order to be able to stand up and speak back to a senior officer or something like that, I think he had to be a little older to be able to do that, and just the responsibility of how much power you have and how you can mess up a person's day.
Very
the
true.
letter of the law versus what we call the spirit of the law.
Very true. Very true. Now, Reggie, then came something very interesting in your life. You began to be the bodyguard for Suge Knight as a police officer. Now, tell the audience, first of all, how did you and Suge Knight meet, and how far did you go back before you became a bodyguard?
Me and Suge had a very unique relationship than most people. We went to elementary, junior high, and high school together. And why I say our relationship is so unique, it was because we were supposed to go to this school in Compton called Dominguez High School, where we both elected to go to Linwood High School because it was closer to our home, because we was on the borderline. But mainly, and more importantly, was because it was a good football school. And we both really wanted to play football because we wasn't the ones that, we both grew up in households with both our parents. No disrespect to anybody that just grew up with a mother or a father, but we're gonna keep it real. It's not too often that we all are blessed or fortunate enough to grow up in a two-family home. Just how it was for whatever reason. But we were. And so they wanted a little more from us. So we wasn't into that gang activity and gang banging stuff. Even though she'll get that image and all of that, that wasn't Suge at all.
So Reggie, he was a good kid growing up.
He was a bully because he was big. He was had big size on him and stuff like that. He had two cousins that was notorious, just as well, but they were, just big because of their size and stuff. And so, but yeah, he was who he was, who he's always been. But he wasn't one walking around talking about what's up, blood, what's up, cuz, and all of that back then. That wasn't
now, Reggie, how tall did you stand? Were you as big as Suge back then?
Me? No. I'm only about 5'9", 5'10". He's like 6'2", 6'3". I wasn't as big as him back then. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't that big either back then, But he was always athletic. This is a man that we're talking about that's, well, I don't know about today, but up until about 10 years ago, was able to still do a backflip standing up. This is how athletic he was.
Wow. So Reggie, what led into him getting into the record industry and then bringing you over, with his notorious reputation and you being an upstanding Compton police officer? How did that work? And how did everybody look at you once you became that?
Okay, that's a good question and fair. So what happened was Suge got into the game by a concert promoter by the name of Al Heyman.
the boxing promoter now?
Well, he's a boxing promoter now. But back in the day, Al Heyman was the one that used to do the Budweiser Superfest concerts that was happening in San Diego. That was like the Essence Awards now, where everybody goes to the Budweiser Superfest in San Diego. That's where all our mamas and daddies went I think it was Labor Day weekend in September. They go to San Diego. And that's what Al Heyman's big thing. And he also got into the Bobby Brown. That's why she got a relationship with Bobby Brown and all of them. And so she got into it on that side from being close to Al Heyman as his bodyguard. He then along the way met DOC, who was over there with Ruthless and NWA with Ice Cube and Dre and them around our boy Alonzo Williams. They had the Wrecking Crew and all of that stuff. And he got up under them. And that's how he got into the music business from there. So, we all heard all the stories about how he got Dre out of contract and getting some money from Vanilla Ice, for a guy named Chocolate and all of that. But what happened was, so the second part of your question was how I got involved and stuff, was my father, who's like the gang expert in the city of Compton, had got some intel that some of the guys that was working for him was planning on kidnapping and robbing him and holding him for hostage for money. And so my dad called, and he knew me and Suge had a relationship for playing football and all of that together. I said, hey, I need to holler at Suge, get a hold of Suge and have him meet us. So they eventually met up, and we all met up at this dairy, I remember, on Long Beach Boulevard in Cypress. And we met there, and my father was telling me, hey, this is the information I'm getting. I'm just passing it along to you, giving you heads up. And that's when Suge laughed it off and go like, oh, man, I ain't worrying about that, And so I said, okay. He said, but right there, he goes, that's why y'all need to be over here watching my back and being over here with me. My dad immediately was like, oh, no. Most of the guys is working for you. I got open cases on. I'm trying to get them in jail right now. And so for me, being 26, 27 at the time, I had just had an accident and messed up my ankle real bad in a traffic accident on duty. I was like, well, it happened both off duty and on duty. And I was intrigued, and, Death Row was blowing up. You had the Chronic and G thing out and all of that, being young and 26, 27, and liking the atmosphere, for lack of a better word, that they were surrounded with, meaning the clubbing and the video shoots and stuff like that. I was like, I want to be involved. I want to do it. Yeah.
So Reggie, did your dad try and warn you against it when he heard that you weren't considering it?
He wasn't happy about it, but he knew I needed to start up another profession because he knew I was having problems with my ankle and wanted to make some extra money and all of that. And of course, he, never was a fan of it, but he had always pretty much let me make my own decisions.
Now, Reggie, you see how NWA depicts Suge Knight and as a bully, and you see other movies as well where they show him hanging.
1 second, I think something burning. My wife forgot about something.
Okay, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we'll come back right after this with Mr. Reggie Wright Jr.
Hey, have you all heard the news? There is this new television network on Roku that is showing the coolest and classiest shows around, from hit talk shows, sitcoms, films, and even documentaries. One of my favorite personal shows on the network is The Sherard Show. This show is hosted by way cool TV host Sherard, and he features some of the biggest and brightest stars in the industries of fashion, entertainment, and of course, music. Here is a list of just some of the few people that have appeared on his show. Les Brown, Joe Montega, Melissa Manchester, Tommy Davidson, Tina Knowles, Michael Collier, Tiffany, The Supremes, and of course yours truly. And for this month only, you can air your own content on the channel for just $24.95 a month. So check out what everybody's been talking about. Download Pure Essence Television for Roku today. Also, it's available on Apple and Android devices. Pure Essence Television. Fashionable, entertaining television.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sherard Show. I'm your host, Sherard, on a special morning episode of the Sherard Show, speaking to the gentleman and the scholar himself, Mr. Reggie Wright Jr. Now, Reggie, we left off with you starting to work with Suge. Now, before we start talking about that part, Reggie, now, was that a viable threat with the individuals wanting to kidnap him? Was that viable or just a rumor?
Yeah, it is. A couple of guys ended up copping out to it, but they did inform Suge, don't worry about it, that threat is no longer. And Mob James spoke on it a little bit on his interview with Vlad, and he admitted he was involved in it as well. And so it was very viable.
Was it back money owed or something? That's the reason why?
Just being jealous.
Oh, okay. So now, Reggie, what was it like on a day-to-day being a bodyguard for Suge Knight?
Yeah, that's the jacket I get. Like I said, I'm 5'9", 5'10", Suge 6'3", 6'4". He didn't need no bodyguard. I wasn't his bodyguard. But I hired bodyguards for his company. And I was always with him. If you can understand what that means. You know, I wasn't really his bodyguard, but I was with him. And I hired, and I was over a lot of things. I wore a lot of hats over there, making stuff happen for him and not.
So Reggie, at that time, this was before Tupac had arrived. What were the artists? Who were the artists that was on the label at the time?
Well, Dr. Dre, of course, and Snoop. You had Nate Dogg and the Dog Pound, Daz and Corrupt. You had Jewel, rest in peace, Jewel. You had Rage, the Lady of Rage. You had a group called OFTB, Young Soldiers, CPO. RBX was there for a minute, but he eventually left. So you had a roster. Danny Boy from Chicago, your hometown. He was there.
So now, Reggie, Death Row was still booming. It was booming then, even before the arrival of Tupac. Is that correct?
Correct. So a lot of people get mad, but I tell them to this day, and I do I have a platform called Bomb First that I do daily episodes, just telling stories and stuff. And I tell people all the time, prior to about mid-96, Snoop Dogg was still our biggest access, even after All Eyes on Me coming out. Now, eventually Pac took over that, that being the GOAT, of course, and people will say, oh, why are you saying that? Well, I'll say, even at the House of Blues show that we did in July of 96, who closed the show out? Everybody knows at a concert, your headliner closed the show out. And that was Snoop. Pac performed right before Snoop. And he closed the show out.
Now, Reggie, what was it like with Dre did you get the feeling that he was disgruntled and he was on his way out when you got there?
He wasn't. To be honest, I don't think he was that way until that trial, that murder trial happened. And Tupac, who's loyal, has that Black Panther training and stuff like that, he was on Dre's head like, why didn't you come to court to support Snoop at any time during your trial? And why are you doing this and doing that? And then Dre also found out that Suge was sleeping around with Michelle, who was his baby mama at the time. And so it hurted his business partner. Dre and DJ Quick wasn't for all of that gang activity that was behind the music or that assaults and all of that stuff that we hear about. They wasn't for that. And so they wasn't about it at all. And So I think he just got tired and he asked Jimmy if there's a way out. Jimmy Iovine showed him a way out. And look at them both now. They
Hmm.
got some private plane and some private office and some Apple office right now and got $1 billion for doing it. Each.
Mercy. Now, what was Suge Knight's response when Dre left? Did it upset him? Did he feel like the cash cow had left?
He didn't want it to happen, but how could you fight somebody to say? Even Ike was mad when Tina left him. What Tina say? All I want is my name. You have everything. You have all this, Ike. Everything.
Reggie, now you're going to make people want to watch What Love's Got to Do with It tonight.
You never watched?
No, I said that you're going to make my audience want to watch.
Oh, okay.
For the younger people as well. We would appreciate that. Now, Reggie, so what year did Tupac come? What year was it that Suge Knight got him out of jail and he came to Death Row Records?
October of 1995. Actually, the date he came home was October the 12th. But it had been in the works since about July of that year. But you know how the system is. The criminal system and the justice system. Nothing moves fast. Nothing moves fast. Like we would like for it to move.
Now, Mob Jaden said something very interesting. I heard, I saw that on yesterday on an interview. I believe it was it was on the Art of Dialogue. But he said that he didn't have an issue with Tupac at all. He said his only issue was that people were claiming he was from the hood when he wasn't from the hood. He was a rapper. He didn't grow up and he didn't go to jail for the hood. He didn't get shot for the hood. And that was his only issue with Tupac. Is that a correct, untrue statement, Reggie?
For gang members, yes. I see it on both sides of the thing, of the coin. He was helping employ people with death row, and by continue to make money. The more money he's making, she was able to do more things for people from that hood and that neighborhood. So I understand. So just because somebody didn't grow up and they being loyal to you and they looking out for you and helping you out, I understand loyalty. So I understand hiring people and being with people that you grew up with, because when you know somebody's mama and their sisters and their family and stuff like that, I think you're gonna be a little bit more cooler with, or you might go that extra mile with that person. I'm sorry, my wife burned something and got my house all smoky.
No,
But
it's quite all right, Reggie. It's quite all right.
Yeah.
Now, Reggie, really quick. So now, when Tupac arrived, what did anything immediately change? Did the atmosphere feel like it changed, the energy, or was everything still business as usual?
Things was business, but of course, other artists was getting jealous because their albums was getting pushed to the back. Suge was with Tupac majority of the time. They were hanging out, and everything was about Tupac now. You got to remember, he was a workaholic. He was only with us for 11 months. It appeared like he was with us a lot longer, but it was only an 11-month time period that Pac was with us. Yeah, did 2 movies, about 8 to 10 videos, tons of music. And so a lot of people were jealous, but they also learned and learned to respect value of studio time. Because those guys used to have a studio time booked for 12 o'clock and then show up till 4 or 5 o'clock that day. Not Pac. The Pac studio time was at 12, he was there at 12. If not, he had his people there working, getting it ready. He had Johnny J or whoever was gonna be the producer of the day up there working. And so I think they got to appreciate the value of taking this business seriously. And I think that's what Pac taught all of us. And
there was a Vlad TV interview where it was an engineer, I forgot his name, that was speaking about when Tupac came. There were just so many stars and celebrities that came from all over the place just to visit him. And they were mentioning like Faith Evans and, Jodeci and so many other different people just came, and it was always someone to come see him. Did you witness that as well, Reggie?
Yeah, yeah. He brought a lot of people around, and Suge and Snoop did as well. You got to remember, Snoop beat Garth Brooks for American Music Award Artist of the Year in 1995. So Snoop had that star appeal, but Snoop was on a murder trial, and he was restricted from doing a lot of things and being around as much because they put him on house arrest during that being out on bail for an incident that allegedly happened. So, but yeah, Pac brought in a different element of people, but there were always people coming around by evidence of the people, when you say Casey and JoJo, well, no, they were on the album. Suge was managing Casey and JoJo and Mary back then. He, with Andre Harrell's situation and stuff, Suge had Casey and JoJo on Murder Was the Case album. And all of this was before, Pac came around. But yeah, I mean, people were coming around, and Pac brought in people, and mainly Faith. And
that was very interesting you say that, because back in 1994, I want to say, or 95, at the beginning of the Jodeci's Fiendin' video, you see Devontae speaking to Snoop Dogg, but you see a lot of the other Death Row people around him as well. And that just showed Jodeci was around Death Row Records quite often. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. Oh, they love Suge. And like I said, he was managing them. There a big popular attorney back out there in New York named Paul Marshall. I don't know, he was old then, so I know he probably no longer with us. But Paul Marshall Law Firm. And he was real popular, and he was your go-to guy to help with the entertainment side of the business out there, and Andre Harrell and them, and they made the contracts better after working out some stuff.
Reggie, you're a part of a very historic time that I remember very well, and with the music was booming. I don't think there was no junk put out there on Death Row, and then you had Interscope. DJ Quick was with Profile Records before he
Correct.
Came along with Death Row, and then there was so many artists, but not only just in California or in the West Coast, but also on the East Coast. It was booming music, and then you were mentioning, we were talking about this before. It was a beautiful music video service called The Box, where you could just request what you wanted, and if you liked the song, you'd see the numbers on the screen, and then bam, you would watch it. One of my most requested songs I absolutely love was DJ Quick's Just Like Compton.
Oh, you like that? Just Like Compton.
That was one of my favorites of all time, as he was telling the story, about how he went to these different places and they turned out to be just like Compton. Okay. But now, Reggie, you pushed forward a little bit to 1996 now. How was Tupac's behavior, which led to his demise back in 1996 in Las Vegas? Was it really pushing towards that? Was he acting more gangster, or this was just something flukish? What happened?
Yeah, we want to put that on him. It's unfair. We got evidence that Pac was just Pac, spitting on cameras when he came out of the courthouse, on the media. We got evidence of him intervening when he seen two white men beating up on a black man that later turned out to be police officers. We got all the incidents to prove, and this prior to him going to prison, that Pac was just about his cause, about his people, and loyal. So he gets that unfair jacket because he was at death row when that happened. But I think Pac was a ride or die soldier wherever or whoever he's with. That's what I got.
So the unadulterated truth of the story, Reggie, of what happened in September of 1996 is what? What happened in Vegas, actually?
Well, we was at the fight, the Tyson fight, which was crazy back then. Y'all can imagine the atmosphere. I mean, every hood, rich, ghetto, and hoochie mama from every ghetto in the United States of America was there. Every one of them. And there's not that many cities. There's only about 20 or 30 cities where blacks are predominantly at. People think it's more, but it's not. But they were all there at that melting pot, almost like All-Star weekends for some of y'all that wasn't too old. The All-Star weekend in Vegas in 2007. It was a crazy time. But my point is, and so they were all at the MGM, and Mike Tyson had just did what he always do, had a quick knockout.
Who was he fighting that weekend?
I think it was Bruno.
Oh, Frank Bruno. Okay, Frank Bruno.
No, it wasn't Bruno. No, he started with a B, but I don't want to say Frank Bruno for some reason. It wasn't the white guy, it was the black guy. And I thought Bruno was black, but don't quote me on that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Frank Bruno was a British boxer. He was the real tall British boxer who was black.
It was another boxer.
Oh, I know who it was. It was Buster Mathis.
No.
No?
That name not ringing a bell to me.
Okay.
But anyway, so it was a big fight. He knocked him out in first round. And so Pac and them was hyped. They had just played a song, and Mike had came out to the song, and to one of Pac's songs, and he walked out to that, which was one of the first, which was something new that was going on. And so Pac was hyped up. So we have an entourage, and one of the guys in the entourage name was Trayvon Lane. A couple of months prior, there was rumored that Puffy had put out a reward for a death row chain, where anybody get a death row chain to get them, and he'll give you a reward or whatever. There's rumor, never know for it to be fact, but we all believed it. So whether it was true or not, that's what we believe. And so they was at this mall in Lakewood, California, and a bunch of guys from this gang area in Compton, because Lakewood is about 10 miles away from our city, one of the closest malls, either that or Cerritos, to Compton. But they was at the Foot Locker. And some of those Southside Crumps was about 10 of them together. And it was three guys with Trayvon Lane. Trayvon had his chain on. They tried to jump him and take his chain. They didn't, but they tried to. And so a fight assumed and tore up the mall, right? They all left and got out of there. But it was tension and talks about that, but no big thing. We got in a fight, tried to take your chain. Kind of a everyday situation among us, right? And so at the fight, Trayvon observed the guy that attempted to take his chain at the mall, later to be known as Orlando Anderson. So he walks over to the entourage, which was Pac, Suge. So in his mind is his big homies. And he goes to them and say, hey, there's the guy that tried to take my chain at the Lakewood Mall. Pac, like I just explained earlier, is a loyal with whoever he's with, and this type of dude, he takes off and go and rush the guy. Hits him, and now the entourage, of course, what they did was follow behind. They end up kicking and beating the guy up inside the MGM hotel, and they got out of there.
Now, Reggie, really quickly. So the guy they beat up was Orlando Anderson, correct?
Correct.
Now, what do you know? What was Orlando Anderson about?
Well, I knew, heard of Orlando. He was younger. He hung out with a guy that was real notorious named Michael DeRoe, Lil Al. But I'll tell you, that black man between the age of 16 and 22, 23 years old, Unfortunately, they are notorious. They don't have anything. They don't have any kids yet. Generally, they're trying to prove themselves. You can't tell them that you're still wet behind the ears, and you can't tell them, man, it ain't worth it. And so that's a dangerous time period, in my opinion. And he was with the business. So after that, he goes and tells his uncle, who was Keefy D, who was a big drug pen. He said kingpin. I said drug dealer, but who cares? Whatever.
Now, for you all audience members who aren't familiar with Keefy D, Keefy D is a gentleman that you all go back and forth. He has something against you, but you don't really have anything against him. But he's always kind of saying different things about this and that. But you were mentioning in one in particular interview that he really was a crackhead from the beginning. Is that correct?
Prior to becoming a drug dealer, he was a crackhead. He was on, and unfortunately, a lot of the guys, man, y'all really need to watch that Snowfall with our boy. That show, man, it tells you how that drug got to the worst or the best of us. And I don't know of one black family that wasn't affected by rock cocaine at one time. Everybody that I knew, family had somebody that had issues with that drug at one point in time in life.
Now, Reggie, did you know about Keefy D prior to this?
Just by street name and legend and stuff like that. To be able to put an eye on him and say, oh, that's Keefy D, no. But I knew of his name and his legend and, for being a drug dealer and all of that. But in the 80s, when he was on cocaine and all of that, I didn't have a personal relationship with him because he was in jail most of the time when I started on the police force and all that. He was locked down.
So I'm sorry, you can continue with your story, Reggie.
But my wife's brother and all of them grew up in the neighborhood with them. And one of my good friends lived next door to him, or his wife, family grew up next door to him. And so I know everything about the man, unfortunately, because Compton is such a small place and everybody knows everybody's business in that city. So we only 8 miles wide.
So Reggie, now once Keefy D got involved with the incident, what happened?
Well, they got in the car and he got so many different stories, but his main story is that they came up to the club and was looking to talk to him to have a fade, meaning a fight with Tupac for jumping this. But then in the next breath, he said he had to take Orlando to the hospital, to the emergency room because his shoulder was messed up. So you're gonna bring somebody to fight somebody that got a messed up shoulder. Man's all over the place. But eventually what happened was they did all get in the car. They were gonna shoot up that night at the club, but they got tired of waiting, which he always admit, and they left. But now the entourage is heading down to Flamingo, coming to the club. They see him, he said, because Tupac was hanging out the window, hollering to girls and stuff, and that's just him trying to be funny. But who knows? I wasn't in entourage, I was at the club.
Now, Reggie, you were waiting for their arrival at the club 662.
I was getting the club position and waiting for the arrival because we had a lot of people there. I mean, if it wasn't probably 3,000 people already inside and another 5,000 trying to get in, I'll be lying.
Now, Reggie, did you have a sense that something was about to go down that night with so much going on and so many people there?
Well, you always feel that there was some things going to happen, but like a fight in the club, from too much alcohol, usually about females or something like that, fighting each other. But no, had no idea what had happened at the MGM. Didn't learn that until later. And Keefy D version, as they saw him, they positioned themselves, drove up alongside of him, and shot into the car.
Shot inside of a BMW while stopped at a red light on Koval and Flamingo. And we all know the story. He then died 6 days later. The shooting happened after a Mike Tyson fight against Bruce Sheldon at MGM Grand. And then there was a brawl inside of the lobby right after that fight. Tupac was in the car with Marion Suge Knight, who was grazed by a bullet. No one has ever been arrested for Tupac's murder.
Now, Reggie, Keefe D's the only last one that's still alive who was in that car, correct?
Correct.
And you were saying something very interesting. You were saying that doors are being knocked on. Basically, there's more rumbling going on in regards to what happened back in 1996. What did you mean by that?
Well, the detectives are actively working the case again for some reason. I don't know what political pressure they're gonna receive. If they feel he done talked a little bit too much, and you got some DA that's like, okay, go out there and work this. Go find this out, this out, and this out. As we learn if we watch Law and Order, how the DA tell the cops what to go find. And if you go find this, I'll file the case. And that's what I believe is happening.
So, Reggie, why is it that when he was identified that Armando Anderson was the shooter, he was never arrested for it, but
he was never officially identified by anybody. Everything happened was from Keefe D's statement. Prior to that, it was just all speculation. We had threw that out before. We knew it because by evidence of the war that happened in Compton a couple of days later, Southside and Ma Paru area was going at it. It was a bunch of tragic events that happened during that time period. But that's how they believe in the street justice. When I say that, I'm saying gang members.
Now, Reggie, going back to the shooting now, Suge was driving and Tupac was in the front seat, and you see many pictures showing that. Oftentimes, moments you see Tupac looking right at the camera moments before it happened. Now, many say that Tupac's biggest, the worst thing he could have done was he was trying to jump in the back seat, and that's when he got hit the most. Is that correct?
That theory is out there. I don't know. I ain't never been shot at like that, and most of us that's commenting on this hasn't either. We don't know how we're gonna react. If it was me, I would have been on that floorboard. I would have been ducking, trying to get out of the way, or get as low as I can. But
and Suge only sustained a graze to the skull, correct?
Correct.
Now, one thing that's very interesting, Reggie, is that Tupac was taken to the ambulance. He was quickly ushered to the hospital. But you hear many reports that it was absolute pandemonium at the hospital, and it was so much security that you couldn't even get close to Tupac's ICU area. Is that correct?
He was approachable. He wasn't like Michael Jackson and Prince and all of them there, by evidence of all the pictures and stuff that you have out there. But that's how people want to make you now. You gotta remember, we're talking about 96. In 2022, we done build him up to be our Black Elvis. But he wasn't on that status in 96. Snoop was a little bit, but not on that status. So now, people have learned from those incidents, and that's why I believe God put us in these situations so we can protect people like our Beyonce, Drake and all of them. We're like, okay, you better learn.
That is so true, Reggie. Now let's shift gears. I'm not going to take too much of your time. I'm thoroughly enjoying this conversation with Reggie. He's such a kind gentleman, as a matter of fact. And we're going to send you a nice gift for being on the Sherard Show, just to let you know. We're definitely going to do that.
I'm glad. I'm one of those that's glad to be asked to come on the platform, so I know you don't have to do it.
No, it's a wonderful, wonderful conversation, and I'm always been a big fan of yours. Now, Reggie, let's switch for a quick second to the other thing that happened 6 months later, and that was the murder of the murder of Biggie Smalls. Now, there's a lot to be said about that one as well, because you hear from is it Gene Simmons, I believe his name is. He was
Gene Deal.
Okay, Gene Deal, who was the bodyguard for Puffy as well as for Biggie. Now they've sent fillers out and asked P. Diddy, Puff Daddy at the time, if it would be safe for Biggie to come out to LA after what just happened. And Gene reported that they said, no, do not come out here because it's not a good time. It just happened, etc. But Puff Daddy said, no, we're still coming, and it came anyway. Is that something that you heard about?
I heard they was out there, and I know, and there's interviews from Lil C's and other people that they were out there 2 months prior to that incident happening.
Now, Reggie, it was so fresh in people's minds. You absolutely wouldn't have tried to do that yourself if the rumor was that, that Biggie had something to do with it, Puff Daddy. Wouldn't you say it was 6 months was way too soon to come to LA after all this?
Well, we can always Monday back quarterback stuff. But do we stop living? That ain't those guys. That ain't how they built. Michael Jackson might have did that. No disrespect to Michael, but he was that type of dude. But these guys in that gangster rap mentality and growing up like, hey, man, I ain't worried about that. If it happens, it happens. It's that mentality. But I can't go and hide. I can't go and do this or do that. Unfortunately, man, I look at it on both sides of the coins. I look from it as a law-abiding citizen side of the coin, and then I look at it as a street dude side of a coin, where from being around them. That ain't how they think. That ain't their worries. Things that we worry about, they don't worry about like we do. And if you tell me to be like that, then I don't need you to be around me. You don't have to come. You don't have to hang out. You go home to your wife and your family. But we're doing this.
Wow. That's a very interesting perspective, Reggie. Now, Reggie, you were running Death Row Records for a time once Suge Knight had gone to prison. What was life like being from a Compton police officer to now running the hottest label in the world?
Yeah. It was a unique situation, but luckily I had Suge here to lean on daily on the phone. I mean, y'all wouldn't believe the talk time I'd have had with this man on the phone from prison. And then he had visiting hours Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. And guess who was up there every Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, and Sunday? One of his females, because he always had a female sitting next to him, Reggie, and whoever we needed to meet with that week.
Wow, so it was like a Death Row Records meeting right there.
Exactly.
So how did you like the day-to-day of it, and what transitions you out of that?
I wouldn't change it, but it affected my relationships with the females that I was involved with at the time. It affected my relationships with Mother's Day or Christmas and stuff like that with my parents. It affected my relationships because my kids were still young at that age. At that time, they were like, my oldest daughter, Brittany, probably was 6 or 7. And my middle daughter was like 1 or 2. And so wasn't there like I would like to be, like I would be now as a 55-year-old man. But, but I always told them when they complained about that, I said, but you was the first ones that had the Air Jordans out. You was the first one to have this. But that was a 27-year-old man talking. 55-year-old man, you'd be like, I am.
Wow.
It wasn't all about the Air Jordans or the latest thing, or they just want to be with you. They just want to have that quality time with you.
That is so correct. That is so correct. So now, Reggie, first of all, it's so good to see that you're healthy and you're back, because you really suffered from COVID and caught the bad end of it, the worst end of it. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So back in December of 2020, before the vaccines or being vaccinated was available to us, I came down with the COVID-19. had it bad. I was placed on a ventilator in mid-December. December the 27th, they called my wife and told her, we're going to take him off the ventilator because we don't see any hope. My mother, my sister, and my wife got together. They said, no, well, we ain't authorizing that. And if you do, we're going to sue the heck out of y'all. And so the doctor was cool because, doctors can make that call, believe it or not, especially back then, because they were just putting people on the ventilators and taking them off. And luckily, the doctor didn't take me off. A day or two later, they called my wife and said, oh, because they got on their knees. Everybody, I got a church, I got a praying community around me, from my church to my grandmama to my mama. My wife probably was over there drinking her wine, going crazy. But the rest of them was, man, they were praying like crazy, because she couldn't deal with it. I had been with her since 1995. And so that's all she knew, pretty much. And so God spared me. I woke up off the ventilator mid-February, couldn't move from my neck down, couldn't move none of my limbs, couldn't move, everything would be like.
What led to that, Reggie?
I don't know. Just some people have that reaction when they wake up. They call it contracted. Now, everything I can do, I can move. Everything is just not strong. It just won't allow me to, throw that punch like I used to, close these fingers like I used to. But like I said, a year ago today, I can do none of this. So it's coming back slowly, slowly. Of course, I'm getting frustrated. And I'm praying to God daily, like, God, come on. I know you brought me this far. We got some more work to do on Reggie. Come on.
So Reggie, you're going to eventually be able to walk again?
They tell me if I keep working. They just say you got to keep working and trying. And I feel it, like I said, because things that I couldn't do a year ago to this day that I can do now. I can lift myself. I can push myself over from, the bed to the wheelchair or whatever. Man, I couldn't do none of this a year ago.
Wow.
Had a trach in my throat, had a feeding tube in my stomach. I was 350 pounds when all this happened. I might have picked up a little of my weight back because I'm eating real good now. But when I left the hospital, August the 1st, I was 225.
That's 100 pounds.
125 pounds.
Wow.
My nurses that come over daily, they say, oh, you're smaller than that. I haven't been able to weigh. But I can feel that I'm a little thicker than 225. But I just
thank God, Reggie. Thank God you're fine and you're getting better. Thank God I got a chance to meet you and you're able to be on the Sherard Show. One last thing before we go. You're working on a podcast with an interesting gentleman. Let's talk about that podcast you're working on.
Are you talking about Gangster Chronicles? Or
it's just something else from the prison in San Diego you're working with.
Well, stay tuned.
Mm-hmm.
Stay tuned. We didn't sign the paperwork yet, but paperwork's been drawn up and deal points have been agreed upon. And he's just contributing to it, but somebody else gonna be the beneficial to the income.
Very good. Wow. Well, Reggie, thank you so much again for being on the Sherard Show, this special morning edition of the show. It's such an honor to have you on the show with some very insightful information. You can see this interview premiering on television this coming Saturday on Pure Essence Television, as well as on iHeartRadio. Reggie, did you have any final thoughts?
No, just y'all get a chance. Y'all want to hear. I know a lot of y'all gonna be like, "Oh, forget Reggie. He's a crooked cop and all of that." Okay, whatever. But you've never been to Compton and you never heard that from many guys from Compton. But that says that about me or my father, Reggie Sr. But if you want to listen to some stories and just listen and hear and be objective, there's a YouTube channel that I'm on daily called Bomb First YouTube channel. Get a chance to come over there and check out and hear some 10-minute clips daily. I'm sure you'll learn something that you didn't know.
Awesome stuff. Look at your monitor, ladies and gentlemen, so you can know you can click it and watch that podcast as well. And stay tuned on our next episode of the Sherard Show that's coming Saturday in our Redondo Beach studios. We're going to have Melly Mel himself on the show.
Melly Mel, Professor Mel.
His
Good
career,
postman.
as well as being from the streets to being an entrepreneur and a tycoon. So we're so excited to have him on the show. And also make sure you stay here to the Sherard Show for the latest celebrity news, as well as insights from me as well. And always remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you ever want to soar with the Eagles, stop hanging around turkeys. I'm Sherard. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.